Cuban authorities report progress in the restoration of the national power grid following the failure of the national electric system produced on Friday. Mexico reported on Friday a 5.5 magnitude earthquake in the state of Oaxaca with no damage reported so far. And the number of journalists killed by Israel in the Gaza Strip raised to 206 since October 7, 2023. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos. I'm from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. And we begin with information in Cuba, as according to the latest report from the Ministry of Energy and Mines, the recovery of the power grid moves forward in the country following the disconnection of the national power system that was caused by a fault of the substation in Havana, the capital of the nation. The work for the restoration of the system has been carried out throughout the day after the disconnection that was caused by a breakdown in the Havana substation. Within 4 hours after the failure was reported, numerous microsystems came into operation in almost all of the provinces, especially in the eastern provinces of the country and in the central territories as well. Currently, the Ministry of Energy and the Electrical Union continue the work for the full restoration of the National Electric Service, and latest reports state that some sectors of Havana already have a power supply. And in this context, President Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez said that there is an ongoing round-the-clock effort to restore the national electric system in the shortest time possible. Through his Telegram account, the Cuban president posted that we are working hard to recover the stability of the national electricity system. Since last night and during the early hours of Saturday morning, we have been in constant communication with the Minister of Energy and Mines, Vicente de la O. Several provinces have already set up their own microsystems, and they are starting to synchronize generation units. And the Minister of Home Affairs of Guyana, Robinson Ben, threatened those ready to support Venezuela's right to establish a governor in the Guayana Esequiba, stating that any elected authority, together with all of its supporters, would be charged with treason. During a statement made this week at a police conference, Ben underscored that any Guyanese that be appointed as governor of the disputed territory would be locked up and charged with treason. He then highlighted that anyone supporting this initiative would also be charged. The situation reflects the climate of tension in the area historically disputed by Venezuela, which claims, based on the Geneva Agreement, sovereignty over this territory. Guyana, for its part, has violated its agreement by granting the U.S. oil company permits to exploit oil.
And I've said today again, any person, Guyanese or otherwise, if it's a Guyanese who is appointed to be governor of Essequibo and be emplaced at Anna Regina, we will charge that person for treason and lock them up. Each and every one of them. They're going to be charged for treason. And anybody who is supporting them will also be charged.
And this March 14th marked the 80th anniversary of relations between Venezuela and Russia. In this context, the president of both countries held a video conference in which they announced a deepening of their strategic cooperation. More details with our correspondent Roberto Hugo Presa.
The relationship between Russia and Venezuela celebrates 80 years of history. Since 1945, the two nations have walked together in a relationship based on trust and respect, with a vision of sovereignty and cooperation without external intervention.
The establishment of diplomatic relations in March 1945 allowed conditions for regular political dialogue and for expanding trade and cultural ties. The contemporary stage of operation of our countries is connected with the name of President Hugo Chavez. I fondly remember all our trustful conversations with him, and thanks to his personal contribution, his brilliant ideas and his hard and firm position, this significant breakthrough in our relations was realized.
This progress has made it possible this year to deepen strategic cooperation agreements in different areas. These agreements, according to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, raise relations to a very high level of understanding and maturity.
We have made progress in the economic, commercial, financial, and banking fields. In the field of energy cooperation, which is getting stronger and stronger now. In the field of industrial cooperation, public health, transport, agriculture, information technologies, cooperation in space, geology and subsoil use, tourism, science, education, culture, sport.
The Venezuelan president invited his counterpart to the inauguration of a monument in tribute to the Russian army, as part of the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the Great Patriotic War against Nazi Germany in May 1945.
The history of humanity cannot be understood without the great victory of the Soviet Union, of the Red Army, of the Russian people against Nazi fascism. And from Venezuela, I have given orders for there to be a profound commemoration, a celebration in the highest popular, political, institutional, and military style of this great triumph. And in those days, we are going to inaugurate a great monument in homage to the liberating army of Russia, of the Soviet Union, the Russian army here in Caracas.
Libertador de Rusia, de la Unión Soviética, el ejército ruso, acá en Caracas.
In Caracas, the government held a commemorative act to highlight and reaffirm the nexus between the two nations for 8 decades. The role of Russia in helping Venezuela to confront the illegal blockades of the United States or the COVID pandemic was highlighted.
How can we forget also the issue of Russia? What was Russia's attitude towards the most important event of the decade, which was the COVID-19 pandemic? When the whole Western world, that civilized world, Europe, the United States, countries that call themselves Western or call themselves Western countries, denied us access to vaccines when people were dying by the millions in the world, Russia helped us.
Cuando moría la gente por millones en el mundo, no me lo negaron.
In the same context, earlier in the day, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez presided over the wreath-laying ceremony at the Mausoleum of the Liberator Simón Bolívar at the National Pantheon in Caracas, attended by the Russian ambassador and the diplomatic corps accredited in the country.
Roberto Hugo Presa, teleSUR, Caracas, Venezuela.
And Mexico's National Seismological Service reported on Friday a 5.5 magnitude earthquake in the state of Oaxaca with no damage reported so far. According to the SSN, the tremor occurred at 9:19 p.m. local time, and its epicenter was located 15 kilometers southeast of the city of Tlaxiaco in Oaxaca at a depth of 64 kilometers. The earthquake was felt in several locations in the southern Mexican state, as well as in the city of Veracruz, and even triggered the activation of the seismic alert in Mexico City. Local and national authorities urged the population to stay informed through official channels and to review safety measures in case of new tremors. And now we have a short break coming up, but we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. We continue with more information. In the United States, President Donald Trump's administration has declared South African Ambassador Ephraim Rasool persona non grata. In a social media post on Friday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio wrote that the South African ambassador to the United States was no longer welcome in the country. He also said that they had nothing to discuss with him and that this is why he was considered persona non grata. Rubio accused the envoy of hating the country and President Donald Trump, but neither he nor the State Department provided an immediate explanation for this decision. Rasul's expulsion is the latest in a series of moves by the Trump administration to punish South Africa, a country that has supported Palestinian rights and helped lead a case at the International Court of Justice accusing U.S. ally Israel of genocidal acts in Gaza. And in Canada, the new Prime Minister Mark Carney was sworn in amidst looming threats from the United States. Following the resignation of Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney, an economist and former head of Canada's central bank, took office on Friday, March 14th, as the country's 24th Prime Minister. He comes with a smaller and more experienced Council of Ministers that vows to act quickly to secure the country's economy and to protect its future. The new Prime Minister has underscored the threat that the annexationist intentions of the United States pose to Canada's integrity and sovereignty. We now move on to other topics. Palestinian authorities are denouncing the increase in the number of journalists killed by Israeli forces amid the ongoing genocide against the Palestinian people. According to official figures, over 200 journalists have been killed by Israel since the latest cycle of violence broke on October 7, 2023. Palestinian authorities have condemned the execution of Palestinian journalists at the hands of the occupation troops. These journalists have paid the ultimate price for transmitting the truth and for denouncing the extermination being carried out on the Palestinian people. And United Nations is denouncing the increase of Israeli attacks against the Palestinian population in the West Bank. United Nations says that over the last 2 years, over 1,000 Palestinians in the West Bank have been forcibly displaced by aggressions of the Israeli regime. During the first 10 days of March, Israeli settlers have provoked at least 16 attacks on Palestinian civilians and their properties. UN officials say that killings and the extrajudicial executions show Israel's disregard for Palestinian lives. And also in this context, Israeli occupation forces have increased their mistreatment of Palestinian women. According to social organizations, despite the Israeli regime having released 71 women as part of the ceasefire agreement in the Gaza Strip, Tel Aviv continues with its criminal policies against women. It's also been denounced that Israel has turned a Palestinian women's penitentiary into a place of isolation where they are forbidden access to the dining hall and family visits. Social activists are also condemning the position of international organizations regarding the mistreatment of Palestinian women, and they are urging the international community to break silence and take action on Israel's crimes. Now we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you will be able to watch our top stories, special live coverages, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. We continue with more information in Spain. Hundreds of people rallied outside the foreign ministry against U.S. military bases in the country. Demonstrators urged the government to withdraw Spain's membership from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, because it is at odds with Europe's strategic interests. They also urged the president of the Spanish government, Pedro Sánchez, not to increase military spending by passing parliamentary approval. Rally organizers say that they will continue with these protest actions. And on Saturday, Pope Francis entered his 5th week at the Gemelli Hospital for treatment on his double pneumonia. Although still at the hospital, the Pope's condition has improved and he has resumed work. This past week, he approved a 3-year implementation and evaluation process for his reform project, which aims at making the Church a more welcoming and responsive place. The Vatican Bishops' Assembly has released a timetable through 2028 to implement the proposed reforms. Also on Friday, the Vatican announced that from now on, it would provide medical updates on the Pope less frequently, and they have ceased issuing morning briefs advisories on how the Pope slept and how he is starting the day. In other news, the Russian army says it has liberated new localities in Kursk amidst its special military operation to demilitarize Ukraine. The Russian authorities say that the localities of Saulenska and Rubanskina and other nearby localities have been liberated after repulsing mechanized formations, 2 airborne assault brigades and 2 territorial defense brigades of the Ukrainian army. According to an official report, over the last few hours, the Ukrainian army sustained over 220 casualties. On the other hand, Russian military officials have confirmed the destruction of military tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, armored combat vehicles, artillery pieces, and ammunition depot. The government of Armenia submitted a final draft for a peace agreement after concluding talks with Azerbaijan. The Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said that diplomatic relations have resumed between the two states as a result of the negotiations with the Azerbaijani government. He pointed out that both nations are ready to formalize the signing of the agreement, marking a new phase in the stability of the region. Pashinyan also reaffirmed during a conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin the readiness of Baku and Yerevan to normalize bilateral relations on the basis of mutual respect, peace, territorial sovereignty, and integrity. And we go now to culture, as in Venezuela, the 20th edition of the International Book Fair began in the state of Miranda with the participation of 45 exhibitors. The opening ceremony of the fair Miranda chapter was attended by the Minister of Culture, Ernesto Villegas, the Secretary of Culture of Miranda, Gabriela Simosa, among other government authorities. The event has the objective of promoting reading among the new generations, and in this regard, the President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, highlighted the work of the commander of the Bolivarian Revolution, Hugo Chavez Frias, in involving the Venezuelan population in literature and writing. This fair will be held until March 16th at Plaza Bolívar in Petare. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.